Let me just find my agenda here. All right, so I'll take a roll call attendance for the Monday, May 3rd, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:33. Now let's start with Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy here.
Jamie?
Jamie Knudsen here.
Darcy?
Darcy Dale here.
Bill?
Bill Olson here.
And Sean Farrell here. All right, and now we'll say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and now we have a few announcements and some board openings. We have Hamilton Historic District Commission. We have one opening. The Zoning Board of Appeals, we have one opening. The Open Space Committee, we have two openings. And the Planning Board, we have two associate openings. We'll be talking about a few of those tonight.
It says one associate opening on the Planning Board. Did you mean two?
It says one, but there's two, correct?
Oh, interesting.
I believe there's two, but you have one before you tonight, and that
Right.
might have been why the error was made. Apologize.
That makes sense. All right, at this time, we have a few minutes for public comment. If anybody wishes to speak on something that is not already on the agenda. All right, then we'll move on to our Selectmen and Town Manager reports. Rosie, do you have anything to share tonight?
I do, yes. A couple of things. The Concom meeting was last week, and the 133 Essex Street project has opted to postpone their INRAD hearing again, and we should be hearing from them hopefully at the next meeting. Second thing, the Concom, George Tara, who's working with Lauren, I apologize, I don't remember her last name, from the Concom working on an MOA for the patent property. They're still working on it and hope to bring it before us on May 17th. And finally, the big thank you and shout out to Sean Timmons, who again this year has been convinced with very little encouragement to have a free senior swim at the pool. And for Hamilton Wenham seniors, it'll be Saturdays from 10 to 10:50. I believe there's still a plan to try to find a water aerobics instructor so that they could have an exercise portion of that swim. So again, thanks to Sean Timmons, Sherry Leonard from the Hamilton Board of Directors, Jen Flynn and Jim Reynolds, everybody for working together to make that happen. And that's it for me tonight.
Thank you, Rosie. Jamie, anything to share tonight?
Nope, not really.
All right, Darcy?
Yeah, I do. Actually, it's probably going to take a couple of minutes. I just want to take a stab at laying out some facts that a lot of people don't seem to understand, that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District is a completely separate government entity unto itself, and that there is no mechanism for the select boards of either town to effect change or to make any plans for the district. And that's because it's a hybrid system from the 1960s. And again, no mechanism by which we can effect change. So if citizens want transparency and accountability, as they were saying that they wanted from their school district, and I know I want that too, then you have to really work with your school board and your school board's superintendent and work with them as best you can, and elect people to the school committee who have financial backgrounds and some municipal experience in order to improve performance. You want to improve the performance of your school committee and their employee, the superintendent. And there are lots of new families who are new to small town governments. It's probably a shock and a revelation to some of them. We go by regular order. We don't, mob rule isn't going to chart a path to help us reach our goals. So we choose to go with regular order. So for example, if you want action on a joint recreation turf field, or you think the regional schools need whatever you think they need, then you have to do the work that's required. You need to raise the awareness, but you also need to bring along those who would join you in your purpose. So it's really important that you're more outgoing and reaching out to people, not being angry about it. If you know how to make things happen, you won't be angry. It's also a matter of civic pride and civic duty to focus on the process of regular order to reach your goal. And that is the mechanism that you have in this form of self-government that we practice. And I'm going to give some more unsolicited advice to some of you. Don't let your emotions guide you. There's a lot of misinformation out there. You need to get the facts. Feelings are not facts. Mobs don't rule. Learn how things work so that you can make intelligent choices to help you make change. Stakeholders need to form working groups and committees, just like we did for the Town Hall Building Committee. And it's a process. It takes time. It's not instant. We follow regular order. You perform your due diligence, and you focus on the processes as you move forward. And that's the only way you can achieve transparency and accountability. And one last piece of advice. Our town meetings are serious business meetings, and so are our regularly scheduled BOS meetings. They're serious business meetings. They're not a reality show and designed to entertain. Acting out at the microphone is probably a good way to create an impression. But if you want to be taken seriously, get involved, follow regular order, and don't expect other people to do your bidding. And with that, I will finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Bill, you have anything to share tonight?
No, but thank you, Darcy. That was very well prepared and spoken. And yeah, I mean, it's important. Volunteerism is the heart of our community. So most of what we get done in this town is because people volunteer their time and their effort and their thoughts and their knowledge and experience. So thank you for that. And that's all I have today.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I'll kind of piggyback on Darcy's comments that I think we all know because we're involved, but the way to kind of solicit change is to get involved. And I think I'm encouraged by how many people signed up to be part of the steering committee.
Right.
We've got a lot of times that positions go vacant for some time. I think that's one of the things that we should try to look into with our consultant for the master plan is how we can engage citizens more with our form of town government, or can we adjust our form of town government to solicit more participation from people? Because, I think a lot of people feel left out, or they don't know the channels to access to get information. We try our best, but it doesn't always reach everybody. So some way or form to reach out to more people and get more people civically engaged would do better for all of us. So on that note, that's all I have. Joe, anything to add tonight?
I'll be real brief. I've mostly completed my town manager report for the week. Sorry, it's a little late. I just haven't had it edited, but I can share with you from that document some good news. We have a couple pieces of good news. One is Town Clerk Corinne Kale announced today that the Secretary of State's office has reimbursed the Town Clerk's office nearly $6,700 for the costs associated with early voting in the fall elections. So after the elections were held, she completed a lot of paperwork outlining the additional costs that were borne by the town, and she basically got back all of what she outlined in that application to the state, which was great. We also received Friday really good news from the Department of Public Health. In February, March, the town of Hamilton partnered with the towns of Wenham, Manchester, and Essex on a regional public health grant to help add additional capacity for public health in the 4 communities. And we received that grant. Hamilton will be the lead entity in the grant, and the grant funds will fund a regional public health nurse coordinator and a regional public health social worker for all 4 towns for the next 3 years. So it's about $200,000 a year through the next 3 fiscal years. So that's really good news. We've learned over the last year where local public health departments have some weaknesses and identified things that we could try to do regionally with other towns that could help improve our ability to respond to things like the pandemic or just other kinds of public health threats that emerge. And the state was very impressed with our plan and gave us pretty much everything we asked for in the grant application. So thank you to Rachel Lee and David Smith and Pat Shannon here in town, but also to the public health folks and administrators in the other 3 towns as well. So,
That's fabulous
That's great.
news. Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. Very, very exciting. Very exciting. So we'll be able to build capacity for all 4 communities, and it won't cost our towns anything for at least 3 years. Part of the goal of the grant application was to have these positions also identify future funding sources so that they'd be sustainable beyond the 3-year grant. But
That's great.
we've got some time to work on that. So
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Joe, did we share about the shared streets grant that we got yet? I don't remember.
Yeah, we
We
did.
did.
yeah, I
We
think we did. We announced it. They're working on it now. In fact, Pat and Tim Olson were working on it today. The work will be completed by the end of this month. So the winter shared streets program grant has to be spent by the end of May. So we've already started the electrical work on Railroad Avenue. Pat was ordering bike racks, and and Tim was signing up a vendor to do handicapped accessible ramps at the intersections along the sidewalks at all the intersections on Willow from Railroad all the way to Asbury.
Do we have to do anything with the state with curb cuts or anything like that, or is it just existing changing to ADA accessible?
Yeah, we're changing the existing. Well, yeah, the curb cuts, the handicap ramps will be added where they aren't and improved where they were, because there is, like, for instance, a handicap ramp on the Asbury Street connection, but it's failing. It's not up to code anymore. So we'll replace that one when we replace the others. So we'll leave 12 handicap ramps at sidewalks are being added along the route between the downtown and Asbury and Patton Park.
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize there were so many. That's good. All right. We have one item on our consent agenda tonight. Excuse me. It is to approve the minutes of the March 15th, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay. Let's see who approves of it. Sorry, I'm moving my computer around here while I'm talking. All those in favor, Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie?
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Darcy?
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill?
Bill Olson, aye.
Myself, Sean Farrell, aye. Minutes are approved. All right, our first item is the appointment of Suzanne. Is it Safa? Am I getting that right, Suzanne? I apologize if I'm not.
It's SOFA, Sean. Thanks.
SOFA, all right, thank you. To the Affordable Housing Trust. In our packets, we got a glowing recommendation for Suzanne to be part of the Affordable
in your
Housing
email
Trust.
just a minute ago, you actually got our application. For some reason, it was accidentally left out of the packet that you got, but Pat just emailed it to you also. If you don't have it already, you can pull it up in your email, and I will, if you want, Sean, I can share it on the screen.
Sure, why don't we share it for just a second, and then if you haven't seen it, you can give it a quick glance, but she did get a good letter recommendation from Marnie. The whole board talked and chose, so we can kind of go from there. And in a second, Suzanne, we'll have you introduce yourself and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
No, stop share. And okay. Trying to find it. It's here. I just saw it. It's on my computer. It's just not on my screen.
Well, while Joe is kind of struggling through that, Does the rest of the board need to see the resume, or are you okay with the recommendation from Marnie and et cetera?
I'm okay with the recommendation.
I am too. Rosie?
I actually looked at her resume. Joe had just sent it, and yep, that's it's quite fine.
All right. Jamie or Bill, do you have any comments? Do we need to look at her resume, or can we just move ahead?
No, I just wanted to hear her speak, but I had no questions for her.
All right. So Joe, you can now that you finally got it up, we can stop sharing. So Suzanne, just introduce yourself to the folks and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Suzanne Sofa, as you've heard, and I've been a resident of Hamilton for almost 24 years now. Raised my son here, put him through Hamilton Wenham schools, and I'm recently retired about a year and a half ago from my financial services career. And having a little extra time, being a believer in volunteerism and wanting to get involved, I started going to the affordable housing meetings back then in the fall of 2019, wanting to, that just felt like an accessible step, you know, a place to get started for me. And so when the opening came up, I thought about it a little bit, but I thought that would be a great thing to join and get involved. And so I was happy to apply for that position, and I'm looking forward to volunteering my services and my expertise in whatever way will be of use to the board.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the board before we?
Well, I just want to say it was nice meeting you the other day when you came on the tour to the town through the town hall. It was nice.
Thank you, Darcy. Yeah, it was nice to meet you also, and Rosie.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? We can move ahead.
No, I think Suzanne, thanks very much for volunteering. It certainly seems like you'll be a great asset to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Thank you.
Right. So if anybody wants to make a motion to appoint her to the Affordable Housing Trust, we'll
I
go
move
for it.
that we appoint Suzanne Sofa to the Affordable Housing Trust.
And I'll second that.
All right. In a roll call vote, we'll start with Jamie.
Jamie Knutson, aye, and thank you.
Yep. Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill.
Oh, Bill Olson, aye, and yes, thank you for volunteering.
And myself, Sean Farrell, aye. And thank you so much for volunteering your time. We really appreciate it and look forward to you taking an active role in the community.
I really appreciate the appointment and I look forward to it. I do actually have one question, which is I'm not sure at what point I'm coming into this term, but I don't know if you have that information available either.
So I would say, who's our coordinator, Joe? Is that Pat at the moment still?
It's Pat. Pat and Corinne and I will figure that out tomorrow. Suzanne will make sure they get back in touch with you and let you know.
Great,
I know
thank you,
you're
Joe.
taking over the remainder of the term that Bill Massos left, so we have to figure out where he was in his appointment. Okay.
Yep. And then
Okay.
Suzanne, we'll have you come into town hall and get sworn in and before the first meeting that you attend, and you'll be good to go.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Great.
Sean. I appreciate it.
All right. Up next, we have our next appointment of Emil Dahlquist to the planning board as an associate member. And we see Emil here, and we did have his information in our packet tonight. Emil, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Emil Dahlquist, and I've been a resident of Hamilton now for about 3 years. And I am a semi-retired architect. Came here from Connecticut, town of Simsbury, Connecticut, which is about 15 miles west of Hartford. Very similar type of community in terms of the demographics, in terms of the character. And while there, in addition to opening my own practice in 1987, I volunteered a lot with the town and chaired their design review board for 20 years, chaired a building code board of appeals for 20 years, was a member of the historical society, a board of directors member. I was an ex officio member of the planning commission when we were preparing a 10-year plan of conservation and development. which is mandated by the state of Connecticut. For every 10 years, every municipality is to produce this plan of conservation and development. And we started something new that year when I was with them. Let's see, I was on a Main Street Partnership Design Committee for about 10 years or so. While on design review, we put together what we call the Guidelines for Community Design. It was really a means whereby members who were on the design review board could assess projects and ask questions that are relevant to the particular nature of the project and how it would work with the community. And then a couple of other charrettes I was involved with. A charrette is an intense, maybe some of you know what that is, but it's an intensive study of town. In this case, we chose the town center as the primary site to do this analysis. And this is something that I think might be directly related to, well, a steering committee, certainly, I think, and planning board, where we created, ultimately, one of the products coming out of this was what's called a form-based code, which is an alternative to standard zoning regulations, which can be heavily use-related and relying on metrics like density and so forth, whereas form-based really offers a very different approach to how you create and manage change in your community. Because one of the things that most communities, what happens is that over a long period of time, they either rise or fall in terms of the character that they bring and the beauty of the community and so forth. It's really one single event that happens, but it's a whole series of events that go unmanaged, unchallenged, I guess. And what form-based code does is essentially turn things around. It's more of a prescriptive code instead of a proscriptive zoning regulation. Instead of saying, no, you cannot do this, this, and this, it flips it and it says you should do this, this, and this. So it's a very positive way. And the other advantage is that it elicits a lot of public participation because they can understand form-based code just intuitively, because it's very graphic and it's very clear. And most of the community members had participated in this process. So that was key to getting this passed. If you want something implemented, you have to get people involved. And hopefully on the steering committee, if I am appointed on that would be something that we really work on. It's really critical. So that's, I was involved in 3 charrettes. We started off at the town center and then decided to continue that in a couple of other areas. And it's one of these very flexible methodologies where you can do something as very small as a neighborhood, or you could do a town center, or you could do a town-wide approach. And it's, as I say, flexible and it's easy to change. So anyway, that's that's in a nutshell what I'd like to just sort of bring some of that knowledge that I gained in the last 20 years or so.
Competing with.
I had to go put my.
Thank you so much for all that. We've looked at your resume. We've got a recommendation from the chair of the planning board, letting us know that you're unanimously approved.
Yeah.
Does the board have any questions for Emil?
I think it sounds wonderful, those concepts that you were discussing. It really sounds tailor-made.
Yeah, in so many ways it really is. And that's why I'm really keenly interested in this, because having had the experience, I would like to kind of have this discussion or dialogue with other members, and of course, and with the town. Also, it's a great way to learn about this town, being relatively new resident.
Yeah, and I like the position of associate. I think it's a great. I think more boards should have associate members. Kind of gives you a introduction to the board, and then you can sort of decide if you want to run for office and get elected. But no, I support. You know, I'm a fellow architect myself. I support your experience and your knowledge. The only question I actually had for Joe was just that. Just a point of information, Joe, that there's another application out there floating around for associate member that I think got lost somewhere. But is there another position that is still open?
Yeah, there are two, there's one other position open on the planning board for an associate member, and there are actually two applicants for it. The last meeting, if you recall, the planning board, we knew about it because somebody that was trying to get into planning board meeting actually came into your board of selectmen's meeting and expressed some difficulty with the link. So one of the applicants was not able to get in, so the planning board has rescheduled to have both those other applicants interviewed at the next meeting, and then make a recommendation after that, so that everybody has an opportunity to be met.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, okay, so I have a question, email. Tell me, when you run the charrettes, you have a lot of citizen engagement, I'm presuming, I'm hoping. And then how do you come to a consensus when you have a flexible concept design that you're trying to work with citizens
Yeah.
on?
Well, this is a very long topic to get into. I'm not
Well,
sure.
in a nutshell, please.
In a nutshell, what it is, it's set up usually in a 6-day sequencing, and it's a series of feedback loops so that the designers, the team that is hired to do the master plan comes in, and it's a multidisciplinary group. You know, they're architects, landscape architects, economists, and surveyors, and
A little bit everybody.
And they come in and they hold these sessions with the general public. So people
Right.
are invited to come and to give their ideas.
Mhm.
Those ideas are then put into graphic pieces so that people can read them, they can understand them. And then you go back, you call a session after that first design sequence back to the public. And then the master planners say, is this what this is what we think you told us? Is this right? Or do you want to make any changes to this? So it's a series of at least 2 or 3 feedback loops where a lot of that information then is taken. Now, these professionals have done this before. They know very good town planning processes, and they're very good at it. And it's not that they're going to come and impose what they want to do, because they do rely on feedback. And also, it's important to have people in town who sort of hold their feet to the fire and be sure that they are doing what their role says they're supposed to do. So how do you come? You do come to a consensus, and in the end, it was unanimous. The form-based code, for example, was unanimous. There was no public objection to it, and I've never heard of that before in a zoning.
Yeah.
Never in a zoning matter.
It's
There's no public opposition because it was so open, transparent, and
right.
And people were involved. And again, that's really critical.
Right. Well, thank you for that nutshell explanation. That sounds great, and it's wonderful that you have experience doing that, because I think that's brings a really good potential format to our town. So
yes, yeah.
I'm ready to vote.
I'll just not to beleaguer it anymore, but speaking of charrettes, and maybe some on the board know, we did a downtown charrette with MAPC. Maybe it's been 4 or 5 years ago now. And same process. They talked to all the local business owners, and they had all kinds of different people on the team, from planning to architects to business, etc. And we got a pretty good charrette. We've started a little bit of it, but it was kind of more of a master visioning plan. Mm-hmm. So, Emil, I would encourage you, if you haven't seen it yet, to reach out to one of the planning board members, and they can sure send you a copy of it, and you can look it over. But we've kind of been working on that. Plus, about that same time, we updated our zoning bylaws, and it was kind of a hodgepodge. So we kind of straightened a lot of them out. So there's still a few to go. So we look forward to you being a part of that process when we're starting back up again with that.
Yep.
All right. So Jamie, unless you got anything to add,
good to go.
All right. So all those, do we make a motion yet? Maybe
I'll make a motion. I move that the BOS appoint Emil Dahlquist as an associate member of the planning board.
Second.
All right. Thanks, Darcy. And we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Jamie.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
Bill Olson, aye, and thank you for volunteering.
and myself, Sean Farrell, I, and thank you so much. Look forward to seeing all your experience and ideas on the board.
Well, thank you very much. I do have one question. I understand you're also going to be appointing or at least evaluating steering committee members. You want me to hang in for this meeting a little later?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good to meet all of you.
Nice meeting you.
Good to meet you.
Up next on the agenda, we have potential approval of the community house application for a special liquor license. Discuss and vote. This is for an indoor event, and they've cleared it with David Smith and the Board of Health. The public health nurse are all on board. It's just up to us to issue them a temporary liquor license for the day, I believe. And I believe it's a family
Wedding.
funeral gathering or something.
Oh,
like
funeral. I'm sorry. That's right.
May I make a motion?
that. Yes, please.
I move that the BOS approve the community house application for a special liquor license.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rosie. And any discussion from anyone?
I just have a question. Do we do many temporary liquor licenses for the community house? Yeah.
Weddings.
It ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously not too many in the last year and a half.
Right. Maybe that's.
But usually I would say a small handful a year between the community house and the American Legion are kind of our two biggest temporary liquor licenses.
Myopia once in a while too.
It might be correct, right? Myopia once in a while too.
Okay. That was my only question.
All right. All those in favor, we'll start with Jamie.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
William Olson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye. Motion passes. Liquor license is approved. All right.
Does that need to be signed?
Yeah, Joe, do we have to sign that?
The board had previously authorized the town manager to sign it once it's been voted by the board. So I've been signing them since I got here.
Perfect. Up next, we have the water rates update from Tim Olson and Diane Katz. Unfortunately, Tim had a family matter come up, so I would entertain a motion to table this until Tim can come and speak with us.
I move that we table this.
All right, a second from anyone?
Second.
Thank you, Rosie. And a roll call vote. We'll start with Jamie.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, I.
Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
Bill Olson, aye.
and myself, Sean Farrell. I thank you, everybody, for understanding. And now we have the appointment of at-large master plan steering committee members. We have 4 openings, and I believe we have 9 applicants.
Wow.
I think it's 10.
Is it 10?
You got one late ad on Friday. We got one late ad on Friday. So I believe these are the names of all the people that have applied. All the
Boy.
applications should be in your packet.
Yeah.
So
Boy, I've got to say, there's a lot of planning talent in that group.
There is. So maybe I know we have a few of these folks, if not a good number of them here tonight. So do we want to do what we've kind of done in the past, is let people introduce themselves to us and then we can discuss that?
How much
does
of
that
a
work?
time limit are you going to give 10 people?
A half an hour each. Is that okay, Darcy?
Just asking, maybe.
I would just ask that,
Okay.
if they do speak tonight, I'm not going to hold a stopwatch to you, but just, keep it brief, give us the higher level view, and we'll kind of go from there. If you're getting long-winded, I might say time to wrap it up. But also, I know one person, Scott Madden, couldn't make it tonight. He had to fly to Florida to take care of a family matter. So he is definitely interested. He just could not make it tonight. So he sends his regards. Is it Kala or Kayla Campbell? Is she here on tonight? Maybe not. Okay, we'll move on. Is Kristen Kastner on tonight?
I am here.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome
Would you
to- Go ahead.
would you just mind sorry, I keep cutting you off. Would you just mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Kristen Kasner. I have lived in Hamilton for 12 years. I grew up in Winchester, moved here in 2009. I love Hamilton. It's just exactly the setting, my family and I were looking for, with, a lot of protected open space, a lot of trails, but really a tight knit town center. And those were are kind of our goals in moving to a community that, that we wanted to, grow our family in. I also am the planning director for the town of Burlington. I've been in planning for about 20 years, 18 years in Burlington. I have been involved in many different types of planning initiatives and master plan and economic development planning, a lot of permitting. As you guys are, I'm sure, aware, Burlington is a very different community to Hamilton. However, I do think there are process parallels in terms of really getting to our goals through a planning process. So, I've spent my entire career really fulfilling the vision of the residents of pretty much residents of Burlington. And although, I've great pride in the work I've been able to accomplish, and try to create a better quality of life, as well as really create options for and ensure our fiscal stability with a diversified tax base and business base. But as I mentioned, Burlington and Hamilton are very different. So I really welcome the chance to be able to share my own voice in this process, and I hope that my experience in planning can also aid in the process and building consensus around ideas and different ideas, and really working through that iterative process to get to the goals of where we're going in the next 20 years in Hamilton. And I do appreciate the comments by Amal Dahlquist about the form-based codes, as well as really creating a framework for what we want, rather than creating kind of a do's and don'ts. So I think that's really an important measure to look at as we move forward. And also, I was the president of the American Planning Association Mass Chapter for 2015 to 2017. Before that, I was 8 years as professional development officer with the chapter. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of folks and fellow planners in Massachusetts, and really enjoyed the work I did on that organization promoting planning throughout the Commonwealth. And I hope that I could have a chance to help the planning efforts here at home in Hamilton. So I thank you for your time, and I would take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions for Kristen before we move on?
In the interest of time, Sean, I won't ask anything.
All right, Bill, you were starting.
I just had one question. Just curious, what departments fall under planning director in Burlington? But just out of curiosity, just how that's broken up and what your day-to-day is.
So Burlington is set up as an elected planning board. Planning staff actually work under the elected planning board. The elected planning board, we work in parallel more so than have departments underneath us, because we do not sit under the town administrator. However, we run all of the development coordination aspects of permitting in terms of fire, police, engineering, board of health, conservation, and we have a weekly Tuesday meeting, review every application, kind of where everyone is. I instituted that about 10 years ago when we started finding that people were pigeonholing, like, oh no, Concom is fine, they love it. Do they really love it? So just working collaboratively among all the departments has been important in really getting through our review process. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
I really don't have a question. I think your resume is quite strong, Kristen. So you're not to show my cards, but you're a lead contender for me in the beginning here. Scott Mattern couldn't be here. Kristen Piper, is she on tonight? Kristen, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me
Hi, Kristen.
okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Kristen Piper, and I moved to Hamilton about 4 years ago. I work remotely for a healthcare nonprofit called the Nurse Family Partnership, and I've been in the health policy field for about 12 years. My two sons, age 4 and 2, go to daycare in Hamilton, and my husband teaches and coaches soccer in the district. We moved here to be close to my sister and her family, who also live in Hamilton, and we've really committed to Hamilton and put our roots down. I actually, we moved from Denver, and I would come out here to visit my nieces and nephew for many, many years before I had kids. And I just knew that this was the place that I wanted to raise my family once my husband and I started having kids. I would fly all the way here from Denver to go to the fall festival and the Halloween parade, and just loved the sense of community that Hamilton has, as well as the location. And so, like I said, we just knew that this is where we wanted to raise our family. I have no experience doing anything like this, but I've been looking for a way to get involved in the community. And I think that this is just a great way to do that. I would be really committed to ensuring that I could do whatever I can to get input from a variety of audiences, whether it be neighbors or people who go to my kids' daycare. And I just want to make sure that my husband and I want to stay in Hamilton, and that it continues to be a welcoming place for everyone who wants to live in this beautiful town.
Thank you, Kristen. And I'll add to your bio a little bit, Kristen, that you've also convinced your parents to move to town as well.
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. So
three families have moved to Hamilton.
Yep. We grew up in Western New York, just north of Buffalo, and now we are all here. So it is a special place, and would be honored to help keep it that way in whatever way, shape, or form I can.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. Any questions for Kristen? All right. And then we have Emil again. Emil, do you want the floor for a minute to speak to this, or have you kind of said your piece? It's up to you.
I said my piece, so I'm happy to defer to the other members or potential members.
All right, thank you. I saw Jen was on the call as well. Jen, do you want to say a few words?
Hi. Yes, thanks. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, great. Let's see. So I will just start by saying I don't have any planning experience. And I think that's important for you to know, because it's okay if you don't vote me in. But I think what I will bring to the table is I've been in Hamilton Wenham for 49 years. I went to the high school. I raised my kids in public schools. I work at the Council on Aging in Wenham. I've done Meals on Wheels through the Hamilton COA. I coach at the high school, and I'm very involved with the community. So I know a lot about the community. I've been through the times we've collaborated with the library and trying to collaborate with the fire station, and watched many times our community not coming together to vote on open space or not to vote on open space and things like that. And I think I have a real pulse on what I think I can help add to our hopes and dreams for our town and where we want to be and how we remain open space while also being open to others, and hopefully lowering some taxes in areas where we can invite more people into our town while maintaining our open space. And so I think I can add to it, but like I said, I don't have a lot of that planning experience. So whatever direction and how it can serve you is, I will do it if I can.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
And I appreciate the kind of candor, just saying, like you and Kristen said, you've never done anything like this before. I think that's great that all the folks are putting themselves out there, because we really want a kind of a varied demographic for this group. If everyone was a builder or an architect, that's great to have that background, but we want it to be representative of kind of the different people of Hamilton. So everybody's got an equal shot at this. So I appreciate it.
Oh, good. Okay.
Any questions for Jen before we move on? All right. And up next, if Natalie Hildreth is on the call, we'll take a few words from her if she's here.
Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I'm a little under the weather, so if I disappear, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just introducing myself right now.
Yep.
Okay. I'm Natalie. I moved to Hamilton almost 3 years ago this October. I moved from Arlington, but we lived in Somerville mostly. I lived in Somerville for 13 years prior to moving to Arlington for about 3 years. And then we moved up here just to be closer to family in the area to help with childcare. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. So an incoming kindergartner and a 2nd grader at Winthrop. And, you know, I kept seeing the ads for this around town, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to look into that, you know, because this past year watching on Zoom, a lot of meetings and school committee meetings and, you know, getting a kind of bird's eye view of the decision-making process of the town was really interesting this last year. So, you know, just wanting to be a part of that and learn more about what goes into, you know, town planning, and being able to offer my perspective of, I'm also a military kid, so I grew up all over, primarily the East Coast. So I've lived in a lot of places, and I came here for college and just ended up staying in the Boston area. But being able to offer my perspective of having lived in a lot of places, a mom of 2 young kids, and the needs that come with that, and also coming from a more urban area, but also loving, you know, this place, this town and what it offers, but needing to see it also grow and diversify for the future.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Anyone have any questions for Natalie? All right. Is Jack on with us tonight? I don't know if I saw him on the call earlier or not.
I didn't see him on the call, Sean.
All right. Jonathan Sanford, are you on tonight?
Yeah, I'm on.
Hi, John.
Okay. Hey. Hi. So I'm Jonathan Sanford. I'm gonna be maybe the person who's lived in Hamilton the shortest amount of time. I'm at about 13 months. Me and my wife closed on our house on March 18th in 2020. So right as everything was kind of shutting down. So man, we made it under the wire. Yeah. So, you know, basically, you know, from my perspective, the way I try to like live my life, I'm kind of so who I am is I'm a scientist. I work at New England Biolabs up in Ipswich. I'm originally from Western New York, but have moved around a little bit. But I've been up in New England since 2014. I lived in Connecticut down near Groton or New London, if you're familiar with that area. Mystic, I guess, Mystic Pizza, everyone knows that. And I worked down there at a large pharma company for a few years, and have moved up here. And when me and my wife moved up to the Boston area, a big thing for us was we wanted to be sure we were going to live where we wanted to live. So we actually lived in the area for a couple years and kind of, you know, tried to experience as much of the surrounding towns as we could. And we always kept coming back to Hamilton. It is just a beautiful town. I think it just really encapsulates like that romantic New England feeling, you know, when you drive through some of these, especially some of the back roads. So, okay, I'm going on. You know, I'm a scientist, and what I like to do is I'm an information gatherer. And one of the things I like to do as I gather information is try and you know, learn and teach myself as much as possible. And, a big part of that for me is helping others learn and helping other people out. And so, I have some experience. I mentor for the Gloucester Marine Genetics Institute for their, it's kind of like a occupational program that's aimed at bringing some of these biotech skills to people as more of an occupational, training as opposed to like a traditional, education. And so I always try and do that with my science career. And so now, I'm in this position. I have two young kids, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old living in town here. And I just saw the sign and I thought, this would be a great way for me to start to get involved. And hopefully be able to learn some new and exciting things. I have already learned what a charrette was today, so that was exciting. But yeah, that's me in 3 minutes. So
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Any comments or questions for Jonathan before we move on? All right, and the last one, I didn't know if he's on the call or not, but Al DeGroote.
I'm here, Sean, and you got me a little nervous when you said we were going to be speaking for 30 minutes. I'm thinking, how am I going to fill that? But, I would have vamped and figured it out. Well, we went from Jonathan, who is the most recent of the group applying, and I'm of probably the more senior of the group. I've been in Hamilton, raised two wonderful sons who are doing great stuff in the world, and the Hamilton school system is certainly partially responsible for that. I've been in Hamilton for 34 years, and I still remember quite fondly what it was that brought me to Hamilton. And I was actually talking, I hadn't considered the committee until I was talking to Jonathan Poor, who's running for office in town for the planning board. And we were talking about Hamilton and talking about my experience raising my two sons here and living here for all of these years. And recently, Jonathan helped my wife and I, my wife Judy and myself, put together an addition to our home for the plan of aging in place. We want to make this our home for the long run. And I really am committed. I didn't know this until I was speaking to Jonathan, but I'm really committed to try and help keep this town attractive to future generations. My background is much and varied, from group process counseling for a national organization, but my main vocation has been many through the years, but for the last 22 years, I've been in food service sales and marketing. And the background of sales and marketing may seem a bit stretched in this situation, but I don't see it that way at all. It served me in everything I've done in my life. I've been a sales person and a marketer since I was a young lad, as an entrepreneur in many different businesses. The distillation of information that could be gathered through this committee and the steering committee, and taking that and finding the true core, if at all possible. And that's where the marketing, and I say that in the most lovely sense of the word, comes in, is to frame it in a way that creates as much harmonious acceptance as possible, to find that sweet spot. And it's not going to necessarily be easy, and there's probably going to be conflict. I will just put it right out there. I am an environmentalist. I believe that a big part of my attraction and many of my peers around the area's attraction is, and putting back in sales, is being able to market the difference of Hamilton, market the environmental impact, market the composting and the pride that we would have as a community of the early composting and the first composting in New England curbside. And other green initiatives. I think if we lose sight of that, we lose sight of who we are. And so I am coming with a bias, but that's not a bias that is set with it's not educated. It's not educated enough. I need to learn other people's perspectives. And I do understand we need tax revenue, and we need to figure out wise growth, and we need to figure out 40B housing and exactly how that fits into the community in a way that is equitable and brings people in and feeling like they belong. And I think that's everything I have to say in this moment.
All right. Thank you so much, Al. Thanks for sharing. If we have any questions or comments for Al, you can ask them now. And if not, I heard that Jack Lawrence just got on the call. Jack, are you here with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Oh, good.
Welcome, Jack. We're just kind of going a little round robin with all the applicants and just telling us a little bit about who you are and why you want to be a part of the steering committee.
Excellent.
So you're up. You're our last one.
Oh
You
my
made it
God,
just in
sorry
time.
about
You made
that.
it just under the wire.
Okay. Some reason I'm not getting any video here. Yeah, no, I would very much like to be in the steering committee. I think that there's you anyway, John. So I think planning for this town is extremely important. It's something that we have not done for many years now. I can't even remember the last one. I was on the last steering committee in the affordable housing area. And I just feel that it's extremely important not only to map out a plan, but to put numbers on it, quantify it, and bring it down to a tax rate, and have it in a form that we can really play the what ifs, see how things could shake out one way or the other. There are a lot of things that are coming at us right now. I know there are a lot of interests on the outside looking at Hamilton as a big blank slate, just full of areas that should be developed. And certainly we need revenue. We need to balance our financial situation in a much more stable manner. But there's a way that we need to do it, which will also maintain our quality of life. And I think that's not difficult. But we have a lot of very old schools. We have, hopefully we're on the way to doing something about our town hall. Time will tell. Thursday is going to be a big day. And I just feel that if we can put together a detailed plan with various assumptions that are clear and elicit conversation on the whole spectrum of what the expectations are in Hamilton of its various citizens today, it'll take us a long way toward being able to anticipate a lot of things rather than trying to kind of catch up on a continuing basis. Numbers are very valuable. My background is in banking many years ago, and also in building, and in both areas, virtual building models with numbers was an excellent way to sort of see where things were going to go once you played out the different options that those numbers showed you. So that's basically it. I think I have a lot of very varied experience that would be valuable to the town. I've done a lot of things for the town over the years, and I'm very familiar. After 4 years on the finance committee and another 3 years as selectman many years ago, and since in various roles, I have a long perspective on the town, and I think that could be useful.
Thank you, Jack. Any comments or questions for Jack before we move on to some discussion? Okay. Joe, can you correct me? We're filling 4 seats. Did we talk about alternates as well at one of our other meetings?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recall if you talked about specifically about having alternates for this committee. I know that we talked about the fact that even aside from the work that the master plan steering committee will do, there'll be a lot of work to be done. There'll be perhaps the steering committee will ask for other volunteers to help out on subcommittees, and there'll definitely be at least 3 public meetings that'll probably be done via both Zoom and in person if they can swing it, and possibly more than 3, but at least 3, as well as questionnaires and standouts. They want to do events at, Little League games and things to ask people, survey questions and things. So there's going to be a real intensive effort by the planning vendor, by the consultant, to do outreach, and certainly anybody who isn't ultimately selected to be on the master plan steering committee will be able to find a role to engage the master plan over the next several months. So, but
Yeah,
you can certainly add alternates too. That's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, we can discuss that, but I do think that, to Joe's point, and kind of my idea is, if you don't get picked tonight to be on the committee, don't get discouraged. Please stay involved in it, because as Joe said, there will be a lot of other opportunities to help be involved in either, survey work, helping with forums or subcommittees, etc. So do we want to do like we've done before and kind of give our top 4 or something like that? Does that work for everybody?
Oh.
Yep.
Was that a yes, Rosie?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. And Darcy, I saw your head nod.
Yes.
Jamie, do you have any ideas, or will that work for you too?
That works.
Okay. Does anybody want to start with their top 4?
I'll start with my top 4.
Okay.
Kristen Krasner,
Okay.
Jack Lawrence, Emil Dahlquist, and
Okay.
Al DeGroote.
Okay. Rose, you want to go next?
Marcy. Okay. Let me first say that I'm very, very impressed and very moved by everybody who has come forward to volunteer. It is so heartening to see so many voices in this group, and if people don't get picked for the main steering committee, honestly, we welcome and want, and don't think we're going to lose your resumes, because we're going to come looking for you to help us through the rest of this process. So again, thank you very, very much. And it's really a hard decision, but my choices, my top of the top choices are Jack Lawrence, Albert DeGroote, Kristen Kastner, and Emil Dahlquist, who has just sold me on his idea of form-based code. So.
All right. Thank you, Darcy.
That was Rosie.
Or Rosie, sorry. I'm looking at you, Darcy, but
we both picked the
you
same.
both picked the same.
That is too funny.
All right. Jamie, you want to go next?
Jamie, you're on mute.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, ditto what Rosie said there to everybody. So
yeah.
All right, so my 4 are Jen Flynn, Scott Mattern, Kristen Kastner, and Kristen Piper.
Okay.
Good choices.
Okay. Bill, have you got your 4?
Yeah, I do. And once again, it was like an infomercial on why she moved to Hamilton. We should recorded all those people. It was a dream come true listening to them tell us why they should live in Hamilton. It was, yeah, it's great to hear all that energy and excitement. So my 4 are Kristen Kastner, Kristen Piper, Emil, and Jack Lawrence.
Jack, okay. And not to sound redundant, but just a big thank you to everyone that has put their hat in the ring. My choices were Kristen Kastner, Scott Mattern, Kristen Piper, and Jen Flynn. So by my tally, we have a couple of runoffs here, but Kristen Kastner had 5. Kristen Piper had 3. Emil had 3 as well. Jack Lawrence had 3. Al DeGroote had 2. Jen Flynn had 2, and Scott Mattern had 2. So anyone have a suggestion on the kind of the runoff? Do you want to discuss?
I thought you had 3 with 3 and 1 with 5, right?
Yes. So I have
we're
Kristen.
Voting on 4 or 5 tonight.
We're voting on 4 tonight. So I'm going to say we have 3 seats left because I'm going to assume, since we had all 5 of us unanimously said Kristen Kasner, that she is in, or at least until we vote her in, she's in.
How many people got 3?
Kristen Piper had 3, Emil had 3, and Jack Lawrence had 3.
Were there any that had 4?
No, there were none that had 4.
Then that's your top 4 right there.
Do you want to do it that way?
That's
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So then we have Kristen Kasner, Kristen Piper, Emil Dahlquist, and Jack Lawrence.
Top 4.
Well, we could not have gone wrong with anybody we
No, I really
voted
think I think
for.
we've got a bit of a variety on there, which is good. And please, if you didn't get picked tonight, please stay involved. And if it's all right with you, we'll reach out to you as the process goes along, and would love your input
Right.
at probably one or many points of the journey here. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the appointment of those 4 people?
Sure. May I?
Yeah.
One motion.
Sure.
So I make a motion that we appoint the following 4 people to the Hamilton Master Plan Steering Committee. Kristen Kasner, Kristen Piper, Jack Lawrence, and Emil Dahlquist.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. And a roll call vote. We'll start with Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill.
William Olson, aye.
And myself, Sean Farrell, aye. And thank you everyone for sticking with us. I know it's always awkward when we kind of talk about you in front of you, and it's it's a contest to get on the board, but we really appreciate you turning in your applications to volunteer, and encourage you to stay involved and try another committee or stick with this one and do what you can to be a part of it. We really appreciate it.
So Sean, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, we really do mean it when we say we're going to need a lot of people. And I wonder if by a show of hands, or if people could tell us whether they'd like us to keep them on our list for potential subcommittee members.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Rosie. The folks that didn't get picked that are here tonight, would you be willing to be on a subcommittee or some other form of involvement?
Oh, there you go.
Natalie. Woohoo!
I was worried
Okay.
for a second there. I thought my computer froze.
That's great.
So Jonathan, Natalie, Al, who is there? Is there somebody else on the second page here? There's so many people. Let me just look here.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. So,
All right.
thank you.
And Joe or Patrick Shannon will reach out to you 4 that got appointed tonight and give you some details in setting up first meeting and getting sworn in and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you so much, everyone.
Well, thank you so much. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. And we have up next on our agenda the discussion of the Human Rights Commission recommendations and to discuss in a possible vote tonight. And we have Anna here, and I believe Everett is here as well. And Anne is here as well.
Yes, and Nancy is here too.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Nancy. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
All right,
So, Joe, could you share our slides? Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for giving us the time tonight to share some recommendations with you all. We have had 2 meetings so far that have been very full and very busy and productive. We're very excited to be getting to work, and we really, really appreciate your taking the time to hear some of what we have been working on. Next slide, Joe. So tonight, what we'd like to report to you on is some of the research we've been doing on flag policy development. a recommendation that we have for you with an idea for lifting of the moratorium on flag raising for the month of June. A unanimously supported recommendation for adopting of an Indigenous land acknowledgement proposal that's been developed by the Human Rights Coalition and the High School Social Justice Committee. And then some ideas about what's ahead, what we're working on as the commission. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing is the ideas that we have come across for third-party flag policy development. Nancy Steffes has really taken the lead on this. So Nancy, I'm going to ask you to jump in. But we are wondering if the Board of Selectmen would like the assistance of the Human Rights Commission with the development of the third-party flag raising policy. We have been researching various models of flag policies implemented by municipal governments locally within Massachusetts, but also around the country. And we have also discussed the possibility of whether the raising of a third-party flag or banner should be tied to a state or federal government proclamation, which might ease the decision process for the town manager or the Board of Selectmen, because this way it's just a very cut and dry decision to make. If it's a state declared event or holiday, a flag may go up, and if it's not, a flag may not go up. So examples of when the governor has issued a proclamation have included things like Diabetes Awareness Month, Adoption Day, Small Business Weekend, Fire Prevention Week, legal and other legal holidays. Nancy, did you want to add anything here?
Well, we also could consider whenever there's been a federal proclamation. There's a lot of different proclamations that one of the things that's really great about aligning ourselves with proclamations is that these are all programs that are vetted. Makes the process so much easier for our town manager. For instance, there's Women's History Month. There's National Agricultural Day. So we could consider lots of different options for people. And I guess before this is a wonderful rabbit hole that I love to explore and I love to do research, but I wanted to make sure that this is something that would be useful to the board. If this is something that you would like us to further explore and maybe make some edits to the current draft of the policy.
So do we want to pause there and discuss this, or do we want to wait to the end, Anne?
I think that's up to you. The next part that we have to talk about is our idea about how you could deal with the upcoming deadlines of the June requests for flag raisings. So it may be that you want to talk about, do you want our assistance in developing a new flag policy? And then should we move ahead with that, but then also consider the temporary lifting of the moratorium for June? I think you could go either way.
All right. Does the board have any input? Do you want to talk about possible recommendations from the HRC for flag policy, or do you want to wait until we talk about the moratorium lifting as well? I'm open for either one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, the input is important, because as much input as we get, the more informed we get, the better it will help us make a decision. So part of the process. But I was more curious in terms of, Sean, like what's our timeline for this? Do we have to act before June?
Right. Well, I think with the moratorium, we would have this meeting and next meeting to kind of align whether we're going to open the moratorium for the two requests. But the flag policy could be an ongoing thing. It wouldn't have to happen. You know, obviously we have to draft a policy or redraft the one that we have. And then it's a first reading, second reading, discussion, etc. So I would say and I don't want to speak for the board here because I want to hear everybody's inputs, but I would say I kind of echo Bill in saying that kind of the more the merrier with opinions in advice and best practices. It sounds like Nancy's really kind of dove in and been looking at a lot of other municipalities and federal and state level flag policies. And I'm always a big champion of best practices. And I like the idea of if it's federally endorsed or state endorsed, that it makes it a lot more clear cut and easier for us when we want to raise a flag. Any other thoughts from folks on the board?
The number of flags that you're talking about, I mean, would it be like every day?
No, we're not talking about necessarily this number of flags because frankly, there are not necessarily that number of flags that apply to those things. We're just talking about this is not limited to just the two requests that we have already put in front of you. So there are, you would not have to adhere to every single declaration or proclamation. You would wait for someone to have a request come to you, and then you would make the decision based on whether or not it were a declaration or proclamation in existence. So you'd have to also get the request to raise the flag.
Right. We wouldn't just put up a National Donut Day flag or something
right.
like that.
Like no, so there would have to, your policy, the one idea that's shown here on the slides is your policy would state that the only, I think you used the words discretionary flags that would be flown would be those that apply to state or federal government holidays or proclamations.
And who would pay for the flags? Would you guys do fundraising? Is it, I mean, how expensive are they? And how many would you be thinking of a year?
That also has not been decided. This is literally that we are just at the very beginning thinking about how would we help you understand the third party flag policy. And
I think the idea is somebody has to apply for it and then bring us a flag. I don't think we're funding the flag.
Oh, I see.
No, you wouldn't be funding the flags. I don't believe.
I was wondering, how's that going to work?
Yeah, no, I think my interpretation was that if you wanted a flag for Women's History Month, that you would provide the flag and the request for it.
How would we mediate third parties that want to put their flag up, but we have reasons why we wouldn't want them to? For example, if you had like a political party that wanted to put their flag up the flagpole, like on election day or something like that, how would you?
I think it would go back to what they referenced earlier, that it would have to be a federal or state
holiday or
holiday, right? Proclamation.
And no other metric. That would be the regular.
I mean, I think that's part of what they're looking into. The other, I was kind of brainstorming the other day and trying to think about, some of the flags that may be requested wouldn't be under that umbrella of the federal or state proclamation. So, I was even wondering if, like in Patton Park, if we sponsored a flagpole that was sponsored by the HRC, and if the HRC determined it was something that they wanted to fly, it could be in Patton Park and kind of a neutral ground, not kind of associated with town hall, but it would be in a community center where it would spark conversation, and it would be very much visual to everybody that went by the park or played in the park, etc. I was just kind of thinking of different kind of workarounds so that we could still fly other flags that we cared about, but weren't so much had to be a national or state proclamation. So just food for thought, I guess.
Sean, to pick up on that thread, and I am interested to talk more about that possibility. But my question is, what happens if someone wants to raise a flag that's not on a state or a federal proclamation. And I don't know what definition we're using is inferred in the word proclamation. And then who decides? That's I still have issues with that. Although I think off the grounds of the town hall is something that could be workable. But I also feel that if somebody requests to fly a flag, we, in the neutrality clause and in the interest of representing all people of this town, we should not be discriminating or prohibiting somebody, because we all know that the reality is, depending on who's the governor and who's in the White House, who's in the governor's house, drives policy decisions. And it really upsets me. My stomach feels really upset about this issue. It's just a slippery slope. And I think the policy should come from us. I think anybody who wants to give research is fine, but the policy belongs to the Board of Selectmen and no other group.
Right. We're saying that exactly. We're saying, would you like assistance from us on developing it?
Right. So this isn't to take over the process. It's to give you the information that you may need. So mostly proclamations are legal statements. This does give the town some protection. So you could go and make your own decisions about what flags you want to fly, but then you do run the risk of some legal exposure.
That's interesting. Tell me how that could be.
Well, say there was a flag. You have a policy in place where you will fly a flag if there's been a proclamation, either a federal or a state proclamation. If you decide to go with a different policy, which a lot of communities have done, and you deny somebody the right to fly the flag, they could decide to take it to court.
Well,
it doesn't mean they're going to win, but it could be create some legal costs to the town. So it's something to consider. There's a lot to be. I work in a building that's right outside of Government Center, and I overlook the flags that they fly. And I can't tell you the education I've gotten from these flags, because I see these flags and I'm Googling them, and I'm learning so much about different events, different countries. It's a wonderful opportunity to educate our community and to cheer our community members on. There's so many, we don't even know how much interest they would be. This is just a framework to set up the policy. And it would not be, this is totally a Board of Selectmen decision. It would just be we're trying to find a way to best support you in doing your job. And is this something that will support you in doing your job? That's what this question is,
Well, thank you for considering that it is our decision. I quite honestly feel a bit pressured by this. All of the issues that you have outlined, all of the issues that people might want their flag raised for, to me, a lot of these issues are best served where there's an information session or a lecture, say in the schools, if it's a school project. In the library, there's a room for lectures. Perhaps even if the town hall building is passed, we'll have a building, a meeting room there. And that way, everybody gets an opportunity to present their views, to educate people. my view is that if we're going to do any kind of a policy, then we need to allow equal access for any legal entity. And I will stand by that no matter if it's a state or federal government proclamation. I feel very, very strongly about that. Equal access, my duty, and all of our duty as members of the Board of Selectmen is to represent all the people. So if we're going to consider this, I strongly urge us to consider it for everybody, or as I've said on 2 occasions, we fly the American flag, which does represent all people all the time.
I think we should probably consider having a space at Patton Park that could be dedicated to flag flying. And that way you solve both, you make a compromise, right? We're keeping the town hall as American flag covering everybody. And then maybe at Patton Park, we could have a dedicated flagpole, and people can gather there and tell, store narratives and, gather together. There's really no place.
Yes, it's right. It's a non-government building flag. It's
and not only that, but there's no room to gather at town hall for such a ceremony. I mean, there's really no parking. There's really no room to stand except in the little Memorial Park garden. So I think there'd be a lot more room. You'd reach more people. You'll always have kids there playing, so you'd always have a captive audience. But I just think it would, I kind of like that idea because it is a compromise. The People's House, Hamilton Town Hall, should remain neutral with the American flag, which covers, like Rosie said, covers everybody. And the state flag covers those groups that the federal government doesn't cover. So we're actually in a pretty good space here in Massachusetts. But I think if people want to celebrate and run a flag up the pole and educate people and have activities based around that, I think Patton Park would be ideal, especially where it's really a memorial park for the General Patton, and all those people that made sacrifices. So I don't know. I like that idea, Rosie.
Yeah. No, I like that idea too. But I just want to reframe the conversation because I think we're getting too far away from it. The point, and it's because not on the agenda. We're not debating our flag policy. What we're debating is what we're debating about whether we want the HRC to give us input on the flag policy.
Yeah.
So that's all. So
well, it is
the flag policy. The flag policy discussion lasted a long time before the HRC was formed. Now that they're formed, they've come to us and they've said, "Hey, do you want our help in setting your policy, or you guys want to go on your own?" And so I think that's what we're debating. We're debating on whether or not we want them to give us any guidance that we can consider as we develop that policy. But as Sean said, we only have two more meetings to do something. So if we decide to act now, but that's the debate today: is do we want the HRC to utilize their time in their meeting to help give us guidance?
Right. Thanks, Bill, for bringing us back into the kind of four corners there. So I guess I haven't heard from Jamie, so I'll ask him his kind of input in a second. But I would welcome more kind of input from the HRC on some policies, since Nancy's doing all this research on it. And frankly, I think Nancy's already done a lot of legwork, so it would be good to kind of get the information from her and the rest of the HRC on what kind of best practices and what other towns are doing. And then some more information kind of about, I think the state and federal proclamations or endorsement, that's pretty clear cut for the most part, I feel. It's when you get into the third party stuff that's not endorsed by the state or the federal level that things get a little bit interesting, we'll say. So maybe if, the HRC can give us some input on how other municipalities are kind of tackling that issue so that they're not running into any kind of liability for flying a flag that someone doesn't agree with and then getting into litigation over not flying or flying certain flags.
And also task them with, I think we all like your idea, Sean. So task them with what it would mean to fly a flagpole at Patton Park and have that be the flag that pull that, what is a precedence that's been set on that idea? And
Right.
in any other towns, I think it's a great idea. So it'd be
Right.
good to see
And
the thing.
maybe it's something like we have the flagpole at Town Hall be just for federal and state endorsed, and the one at Patton Park is more of the kind of HRC sponsored. It could be in addition to, let's say we do a Pride Month flag at Town Hall, and since that's endorsed by state and federal, that could also go in Patton Park at the same time. But other times it would just
Oh my
be
God.
another flag.
Oh my God.
Let me just go take care of this.
What was, oh my God?
Oh,
I think she just got an email that she's
Okay.
reading. So
I thought she was reacting to that.
Nope, I don't think so. Jamie, let's hear from you.
Well, I don't think it'll be any surprise that I would agree that the Human Rights Commission that we would benefit from whatever research that they are doing. I definitely have opinions about, the flagpole in Patton Park or whatever. I'll save most of that for maybe the next little item that we're going to discuss. I think it's one thing I think that is maybe a little bit dangerous, and I don't think was ever part of this. And I'm, as the discussion unfolds, maybe in the next couple of weeks, not necessarily tonight, is that I don't think we should have a flagpole that's like the free speech zone, like come put up whatever flag you want. Like
right.
that. First of all, it shouldn't be on town land. I don't think if that's gonna happen, because I think that there's some lines that would get blurred there. So I got that's, I guess, the sense I got from Rosie's comments, but maybe I misunderstood. So.
All right, so I think we've all agreed that the HRC and should kind of continue on researching and getting some type of a presentation for us when you get things together, and then we'll kind of take it from there and draft a policy based on kind of the recommendations.
Great. Okay, we will do that then.
All right, and next is to talk about the moratorium, correct?
Right.
All right.
Okay, so this, as you see, Russ Stevens is listed on this slide. He cannot be here tonight. He's visiting his parents in North Carolina. He's listed on this slide because this actually was his idea entirely. He suggested that because we knew that any change to the flag policy would need a lot of consideration and a lot of research, his idea was that we propose lifting the moratorium temporarily for the 2 flags requested for June because of the precedent for them, because Juneteenth is now a state holiday officially, and because Pride Month has been a state proclaimed month since 2017. Pride flags fly on all the US embassies. Pride flags fly all over the state, just below the American flag. So that was Russ's idea, that we bring to you that suggestion, that there be that lifting of the BOS moratorium on the flag raising for the month of June, while you had further time to consider a new flag policy. Nancy, did you want to could we go to the next slide? And Nancy has more information that she's put in about each of those, the Juneteenth holiday and June as Pride Month.
So we're all just learning now, I think, about the Juneteenth legal holiday, and some of us will have that day off. And this is a really great opportunity for us to share this information with our town, and also our town employees who will be off on that day. Governor, as Ann indicated also, as far as Pride Month. This has been celebrated in Massachusetts well before 2017, but it was proclaimed. Pride Month was proclaimed by the governor in 2017. We also this was something that was done last year. So I think it's sort of what Chief Stevens is recommending makes a lot of sense.
When I spoke to Chief Stevens prior to his going to North Carolina, he suggested that since the flag was flown last year, it looks as if the town is backtracking in its commitment to saying it's a safe and welcoming place for all residents and visitors if we do not then fly this flag again this year in recognition of Pride Month when we flew it last year.
Yeah, he shared that same sentiment with me. I talked to him a couple days ago about this, and that was his kind of thinking, that we've already set the precedent, and that being already sanctioned by the state and federal government, that it was kind of the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Similar to Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm. And Juneteenth, we have, and I'm hoping that you've all seen it, we have a letter from the North Shore Juneteenth Association that I believe has been in our possession for a few months now, requesting that we, all North Shore communities, participate in an official flag raising in honor of the new state holiday.
Any comments or questions, discussion from the board?
I would prefer to see the flags, these third-party flags, even though they are considered state or federal, I would like to see them at Patton Park, where there's no government, what could you call it? I just don't want to create a lot of division where we don't need to. And even though I'm for gay rights, and I have been forever, and I love all my friends, families, and neighbors who are gay, I just don't want to see people come to us and create division because we're not going to let them fly their flags. And if we have it at Patton Park, there'll be room for people to gather. There will be space around. People will be able to see the flags from quite a distance. And I just think that's a good compromise, because I know that this is going to, again, it's like waving a red flag at a bull sometimes. You can make change, but it doesn't have to be in your face all the time, because you've got a lot of times the steps that we're going to take are going to be small, but they're going to come one after the other. And that's how you generally get people to come along with you. If you force people to acknowledge something they're having difficulty with the concept, you're not going to bring them along with you. That's what we're trying to tell you. You can't force people to believe the way you believe. But if you take small, meaningful steps and you do it the right way, it will be easier for people to come along with you. And that is what you want. That is what your whole mission is. Bring people along with you. And it might not be at the speed of light. You know, that might be what you guys want, but that's not the reality. And I just know people in general as animals, right? That are going to resent if you do it this way. I think it's going to cause trouble. I can almost see, even though I'm not on Facebook, I know I'm going to hear about it because people are going to be talking about it. Isn't there some way we can come together, but still leave the door open for other people to come?
Yeah, I hear you, Darcy. I understand your perspective, but I think that the flag is the small step. You know, I think it's one step among many that we could do to show that we care about people.
Well, if you know, last year there were some people that are citizens and taxpayers of this town, and even though I don't agree with them, and I know you guys don't agree with them, but it's going to be a problem for them, and it's going to be a problem for us. So what I'm saying, let's take this time to compromise and just go a little bit slower. I know that there are some people who are very anxious and impatient, but you can actually end up hurting your cause if you don't take your steps and think about how you're going to approach it.
Yeah, I would say I like the idea of putting the flag in Patton Park, but I would put it at Town Hall too. I would put a pride flag both at Town Hall and at Patton Park. The same with Juneteenth. That's my 2 cents. Bill or Jamie?
Sean, I would agree with you that these are small steps. These are minimal steps we can take, and we did it last year. And I agree. We don't want to go backwards. I think the compromise is until we figure out our flag policy. I think compromise is to allow these flags to fly again and not stop the process, but improve on it. So I'm in favor of lifting the moratorium for June. I just want to make sure procedurally we do it the right way. So
yeah,
well, we've got to follow regular order. Right.
Jamie, do you have any comments? I'm sure you do.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we only did things that everybody supported, we wouldn't get any business done in the town. And that certainly goes for human rights. I mean, one of the, and by the way, I mean, the flag policy is certainly a much bigger issue than human rights. It's not just about human rights, but the Human Rights Coalition, private group, has made these requests. And I think, our town should be supportive of it. Nothing is going to make everyone happy at all the time, but that is not really how we make our decisions. And again, it's already been said, but these are important human rights, well recognized, and very much needed that we do this small symbolic step.
Sorry, I'm talking on mute here. Rosie, I think you're the only one that hasn't weighed in on the moratorium. Are you there, Rosie?
I'm here.
Hi. Any thoughts?
I think I've stated my thoughts. I think because we did something one time last year doesn't make it a precedent. We did it one time. I would be for flying flags of whatever entity who petitioned us. That's legal, a legal entity at Patton Park. That's my feeling.
All right. So I guess before us, then we have a little bit of a split, but we're looking at approving a temporary lift of the flag I can't speak today, moratorium to raise it 2 flags, Juneteenth and the pride flag for the month of June. And then I had mentioned possibly Patton Park and Town Hall. How does the rest of the board that is in agreement or out of agreement feel about that? Jamie?
There's a flagpole at Patton Park currently that we could fly.
Yeah, there's a flagpole at Patton Park. We have 3 flagpoles. We have one at the Hamilton Cemetery, one at Patton Park, one at Town Hall, and then at times we've used the Community House flagpole as well for Veterans Day and Memorial Day. But as far as town property, we have 3.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of that.
Bill, any thoughts on that? I can't remember if you said yes or no to that.
No, I'm in favor of that. I don't see an issue with one versus the other or both. I think it's like I said, it's the right thing to do and a small step in the right direction.
All right. In essence of time, I know we've got a split in thoughts on the board, but I would entertain a motion from somebody so we can move forward.
Oh, hello. Tosh Blake here. I don't know if there's public comment open before voting.
We have to
Yeah,
make a
Tosh, let me
motion
just, let's
first,
just
and then
get
we,
let's just get a motion on the floor, Tosh, and then we'll let.
Oh,
some
sure. Oh,
people
sure. Yep.
talk.
I would make a motion that we fly the flags for the month of June in Patton Park.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I'd like to amend the motion. I mean, it's, yeah, Sean, I'm not sure you proceed with
Yeah,
the motion.
I think we're gonna,
Yeah.
it's kind of Robert's rules. I think we're gonna have to vote on the motion that's been seconded, and then we can make another motion if we feel so.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and call the vote. So all those in favor, we'll start with Darcy.
I'm sorry, the motion is
The motion is to fly the flags in Patton Park for the month of June.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie,
Jamie Knutson, nay, because wanting to fly it in additional places.
all right, Bill,
I think we should definitely take it. I'd say aye because I'm going to make another motion after this to also fly it at Town Hall. So
okay.
I approve flying it at Patton Park. I'm going to say aye, and then
All
we're
right.
going to make another motion after. So I will say aye.
All right, and Sean Farrell, I'm gonna say aye on the grounds that Bill's gonna make an amended motion. So the ayes have it. We'll fly a flag in Patton Park for the month of June for Juneteenth and Pride Month. All right, Bill, you're gonna make another motion.
I make a motion that per the previous motion, we also fly the flags at Town Hall for the same description and duration.
All right, Jamie.
Second.
I put you on the spot, and then we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Jamie too, since he seconded.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy, nay.
Darcy.
Darcy Dale, nay.
Bill.
Will Wilson, aye.
And Sean Farrell, aye. The ayes have it. We'll have a temporary lift of moratorium to fly Juneteenth and Pride Month flags at Town Hall and Patton Park. And just kind of a follow-up on that, do we have flags for both of those events, Anne, or will HRC be raising some money or a private donor or something like that?
I believe we will be, we will have the flags for those.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Next we.
Oh, hey, Tosh.
Yes.
Sorry, Ann. Let me just let Tosh speak. I told him he could speak, and then I kept talking. And we went right by him. Tosh, did you want to add something?
Sure. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Yeah, as you know, I've been interested in this issue for a while myself, and as the board knows, I had put some standing flag requests myself since December. I think in a timely manner. Some are ongoing requests, but some actually were tied to state holidays. Like for instance, April 19th, which is Patriots Day. Just falling in the manner and the precedent of the so-called precedent of the pride flag flying, and knowing there's some upcoming things coming from the HHRC. I had a request for April, for the month of April, for the Gadsden flag to be flown to Town Hall, and I sent a letter along with some other flag requests to all of you. And I was told there was going to be the moratorium. The town manager said the moratorium would be in place till July, actually, and it would be taken up then until there would be a permanent flag policy. But now I see the moratorium for a different party's request as being lifted. To me, seems kind of arbitrarily, especially based on the sort of like the rationale for it being a recognized state holiday, that sort of thing. Where I think my flag request is pretty reasonable and a pretty good choice. It's a historic flag, and but I was kind of told, well, my request was not going to be taken up. So I'd like to actually resubmit that request for July, assuming the moratorium could stay lifted. I'd like to see the Gadsden flag fly for the month of July in honor of our Independence Day. And going forward, I think Columbus Day flag and Thanksgiving flag, since they are also state holidays, I would like to make requests to put out a record for those holidays too. I definitely think Darcy and Rosemary have some good points. If you're going to allow official, however you want to limit it, but allow all viewpoints and sort of legitimate request to go through if you're going to have a real criteria rather than arbitrary. Well, I like this message versus I don't like this message. Kind of that doesn't, that's not really a standard per se. And if you're going to have other flagpoles flying other flags on town property, I think you should be open to all viewpoints, not just say have like a Democrat or further left kind of positions flagpole for that. I think the same thing with anything goes in front of Patton Park. Either have a separate flagpole for people on the right if you want to separate them, or go ping pong on and off with right wing, left wing views. I think it's kind of odd to have just a flagpole that has a certain point of view or a certain, say, political orientation on public property and say that represents the whole town, because obviously it does not. So, wherever it is, whether it's in front of town hall or on Patton Park or community house, open it to everybody, or, just keep it the American flag. But I'd like to make my official request for the Gadsden flag for July and Columbus Day and also Thanksgiving, because those are official holidays. I think those are reasonable requests. And as far as a precedent goes, it's funny how I think Ann Brady said it was a precedent that the pride flag was flown in front of town hall, but it was a precedent that was kind of done just among a few people in town. It wasn't voted on or brought up in any town agenda. I think Anacedic simply sprung it on, or maybe, I don't know how they agreed to it, but it was just between her, the chief of police, and the town manager. It wasn't a board of selectmen meeting. And they just decided on the fly to put it up because Anna brought it to them. And then, I think Joe later realized, well, maybe that was kind of a mistake procedurally. And that's why the moratorium came in, realizing, oops, if you have just one group setting a precedent and then their view is just the view that stays, it's not really a consistent way or ethical way to really run decision-making in town. So, hey, if you're going to be open, I'm open to having a bunch of flags flown, but I just want consistency and equal access, viewpoint access. In other words, viewpoint discrimination, not ethical, and, could have legal problems like some people brought up, So those are my requests, and if they could be honored, that'd be great. Until you come up with a permanent flag policy, that's fine. But
all right, Tosh, thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
All right, and then next, that's it for flags, right, Ann? And we're on to land.
There is a further HRC Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Coalition request about the flag holders on Route 1A. We don't know how to handle that request. We've supported this request that they have about getting use of the flag holders along Route 1A. Is that a Board of Selectmen?
That's the American Legion.
So the holes in the sidewalk they approve? The American Legion does?
Oh, I thought you meant the flag poles.
No, not the poles. It's the the holes in the sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Do you know anything about that, Sean?
That's a great question. I mean, we've historically, the American Legion has placed flags along those holes for as long as probably most people can remember.
Yeah.
And they organize it all with volunteers and flags that we buy, they reimburse us, the state does, etc.
Someone's going back and forth with their cursor, and it's driving me.
I think it's Joe.
You're stuck like watching a tennis match.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know. We've never had a request for that space. And I don't know. I know we've tried in the past, and this is kind of neither here nor there, but side story, that since Bay Road is a state highway, there's different rules with it. Like we can't put a banner across it or different things like that. I know sometimes you go into Ipswich, but I think Ipswich petitioned the state, and it was quite a big deal that they actually got it approved. So I'm not sure if we would have to talk to the state or whether it would be a Board of Selectmen town manager decision. We'd have to talk to legal counsel, probably, is my guess.
Okay. So, I think Anna has put a question in the chat. So to confirm, both flags will fly for the whole month, for the month of June, from the flag poles in both places.
Correct.
Okay. But we still have to figure out the holes in the sidewalk if we want to put in, if the Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Coalition wants to put in a request to put flags in those holders, we have to figure out where to ask that from.
Right. And then I would kind of add to that too, what besides who the ask would be kind of, would that be included in a flag policy since we're putting flags along Bay Road, or would it be some different type of, I don't want to say agreement, but some type of policy
Right.
altogether? Because it's not so much, it's not on a flag pole, but you're still lining the road with the
Right.
whatever the flag is.
Right. So it's got to get clarified. Yes. Who to ask and how to figure that out. Okay. So I think we're on to the next item, Joe, I believe. Am I right?
And I apologize. I didn't let you or Tosh speak previously, but you've got the floor now with Everett.
Great, Sean, that really was my question. Thank you everyone for your consideration of all those requests. And I just wanted to clarify the date so that we sort of know, because we are trying to coordinate a little bit with the North Shore Juneteenth Association on the Juneteenth part of it. So that's great to know. Thank you very much. I, by way of introduction, will soon turn the floor over to EJ Everett, but I wanted to offer a little bit of context. So I think partially because I'm someone who's known for advocating for a variety of human rights and sort of social justice issues, Everett reached out to me maybe back in November, I want to say, for sort of some guidance and help working through the municipal process as an elected official and someone who sort of likes to appear in front of the select boards. So I'm really here mostly as the legislative sponsor, so to speak, to help. And I, in the course of that process, have had a series of really amazing conversations with members of the Massachusetts tribe. But I want to be really clear that the origin of this request has been driven by the students of our community, in particular the Social Justice Club at the high school, for which Everett is an officer. And they've really done the bulk of the lifting and research on this. So I just want to make sure I'm here as a supporter, as someone who's done a lot of research myself, but without further ado, I'll turn it over to Everett, who will share their presentation.
Thanks, Anna. How best should I share the slides? I know there's a slide open, but I also don't see them.
Joe, I believe you have that presentation as well.
I don't actually. You guys shared it last time. I don't think I have this slide presentation that you used at the HRC.
Okay, I can.
If you have it, Everett, I can make you a co-host.
Yeah, I'm going to join with my phone, and my phone can present the slides while I speak here.
Everett, would you like me to share the deck while you talk?
Sure, if that's simpler.
Well, if you could make Anna a co-host.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, there she is. I couldn't find her on the screen. There we go.
There we go. So, hello everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. I'm Everett, and I'm representing the Hamilton Social Justice Club with this push for this land acknowledgement policy. And to kind of give an idea of what that is. Next slide. One example of this would be, we all live on Indigenous land. We would like to begin by acknowledging the Massachusetts tribe, the tribe of Indigenous peoples from whom the colony, province, and Commonwealth of Massachusetts have taken their name. We would like to pay our respects to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their descendants who still inhabit historical Massachusetts tribe territories to this day. And that's a statement that we got from the Vice President of the Massachusetts tribe.
And Everett, can I interrupt you for just a second? Would this be the statement that you're looking to have said before the meetings, basically this, what you just read now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Continue, please.
Thank you. So that is a land acknowledgement statement, but a more formal definition of what this is that land acknowledgements are simple and powerful ways of showing respect to the original inhabitants of land where we are standing, presenting, or engaging in activities. The Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness believes this is a meaningful step towards honoring the truth, making the invisible visible, and correcting the American stories that embrace Indigenous peoples' tribal history and culture. So basically, this is the idea that we, in places like the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, where a lot of the government is run by not Indigenous people, or a lot of the population is not Indigenous, it's acknowledging the history of the land before colonization. And that quote gets into one of the reasons that this is important, which is that Indigenous people are rarely in history books if they're not, if their land isn't being taken, and there's a strong narrative that like this all happened in the past and these people aren't around anymore, but Massachusetts tribe still exists and this history is still present and it's felt in the modern day. And we also don't want to forget the things that have happened here because so much culture was erased, people were killed, families were broken apart, and that's important to remember. And this reflection can also make people inspired to take action. Every time you take a minute out of your day, if you are leading a meeting and you read it, that makes you reflect on your relationship with the land. And this can also educate people who've never heard of this statement. They can learn about this practice. And it is also a direct connection to local history because Masconomet is buried in Hamilton. I'm not going to read all of these, but there are already, just within our state, a number of places that have begun these practices. It's pretty widespread, like I mentioned, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and around the United States. But even within our state, there are a lot of schools and even some municipalities that have begun to read these statements. So the requests that we would be advocating for would be physical markers on school campuses and town halls, or we've been using the same presentation for the school committee, so I'm aware that you all don't have control over the schools. So in this case, it would be markers on town halls and plaques at Pingree and Patton. And also putting that statement on the school district and town websites so that if people are or in this case, the town website, so that if people are trying to learn about our town, they can know more about our history and where we're located in more ways than one. And we would also read this acknowledgement before community gatherings and major events. Like we've got the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of this meeting. We would also, with that, have the land acknowledgement. And it would include virtual events because people are going to be zooming in from Massachusetts land, and that's where we conduct our business, even if everyone isn't in one room. And the Hamilton Social Justice Club would do the fundraising for this. And that's the presentation. Are there any questions?
First, I'll say, Everett, thank you very much for presenting it. It's often nerve-wracking being a younger person and talking to a board of us old folks about something you're passionate about. So I really appreciate you really taking the time and putting the presentation together and working with Anna and bringing it to us. Be proud of yourself that you're trying to make a difference in the world. So I think that's really great. Any comments to Everett? I know this is kind of, it seems like it's moving into a policy. So it would be something that, is under our bailiwick, but we would want to make some type of a policy if we decide to move in this direction. So, taking what Everett has and figuring out how to incorporate it if we choose to do so would kind of be the next steps. But I'm open to hear kind of any input, questions for Everett, or really any opinions, etc.
I mean, Sean, this is Bill. I also thank him for his volunteering to do this and even putting it out there. I think that it's an important thing, but I think from our level and from how we run our meetings, I think we just need to look at the how that would work and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Acknowledgement's one thing, but being part of weekly meetings and monthly meetings is a different animal. So I'd like to figure out a way we could acknowledge it without having to be part of the meeting process. I think you could honor one without making it a negative. So I'd like to look at it a little bit more and see what other towns are doing and understand a little bit more about it. But no, I welcome the introduction of it to us, and I think I need to educate myself a little bit more on it before I can discuss it further.
Darcy, Rosie, or Jamie, any
on that, I think we need some time to think about, how we want to go forward.
Yeah, and I think if I can interject again, I'm kind of stealing the floor here, but I think Bill's point of kind of, we don't want to, I think I'm for some type of acknowledgement. I don't know about it every meeting and venue and everything like that. I think if we do that, it dilutes it a little bit, and then people just kind of make it commonplace. And I don't want it to be commonplace. And I don't want it to be like the board chair kind of going, oh, we got to read this thing again that they told us to read. I don't want to make it a negative thing. I'd much rather it be a positive thing if we decide to adopt it. And, maybe there's some, instead of just having it be a land acknowledgement statement, maybe there's something more. I saw the letter from the Massachusetts group. I can't think of the name of the entity that sent it, but Anna, go ahead.
Thomas Green, I think he's the vice president.
Thomas Green had sent it, and I think that's great that he's endorsing it. But I would almost want a representative come and talk to us and share some information about what it means to them and what the takeaway would be. What kind of value do we get out of it that they get out of it as well? Just kind of saying it in a vacuum, it benefits some people, but I'd like it to benefit more people than, make it a little more meaningful, I guess. But Rosie and Darcy, any other opinions, or Jamie?
I could definitely, by the way, send out some more resources on why people do this.
I would just say, thank you, Everett, again, as I was at the Human Rights Commission meeting where we unanimously recommended this at least for the Board of Selectmen's consideration. I agree with Sean that the more we can make it, the better. So I'd be in favor.
Right. I think we've got some.
Also understand that people do, may need some time to research it, understand it, figure out how we can make it the most meaningful.
Right. I think there's a lot of stuff in our area, especially with Masconomet's grave up by the base, that we can tie a lot of other things into this. It's not just this one thing. It can be multiple facets. Anna, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a couple points of clarification. So the actual request is not for every meeting. For exactly the reasons that you're talking about, Sean, it does become sort of performative and it loses its luster. So in municipalities that have been doing this, it's not every meeting. It is like town meeting. Everett's request talked about plays, major gatherings, major events, because if it does become pro forma, it does lose that. So I just want to be clear, the request is not actually for every meeting. One of the other things that is really important to remember, that I think if Everett provides some more resources about it, is, Sean, what you're touching on is exactly one of the things that a proper land use management is not just a standalone. So the request also involves a spot on the website, I can tell you that the Mashpee schools actually have their acknowledgement up next to the clock in every classroom. And so it's a thought-provoking message, but it also isn't meant to just be sort of like a one and done. You're like, oh, great, we did an acknowledgement. There is meant to be programming and curriculum and integration with how it does attach to the local history. One thing that I want to make sure everyone understands as to why we were referencing the Massachusetts tribe. This was something that I learned a lot about because the first impulse was, well, wait, what about Masconomet? What about the Agawam? What about the Pawtucket? All these other names that are in sort of this folkloric understanding of who we should acknowledge. And I'll be the first to confess, like, this has been a great learning process. So I want to make sure everyone understands the Massachusetts tribal nation is the highest level of governing authority. The Pawtucket were a band and are a band of the Massachusetts, and the Agawam are an affiliation of the Pawtucket. So structurally, it's like we are in Hamilton in Essex County in the state of Massachusetts. There's sort of a direct lineage up. So then the question was, well, why not acknowledge all of them? That seems more inclusive, right? And it was interesting. It was interesting to hear from Thomas Green himself that in sort of the hierarchy of tribal governance, you acknowledge the highest level sockenship. So in this case, the sockenship of Nanapashmet of the Massachusetts tribal nation governed Pawtucket to Agawam all together. So to be most honorific and most comprehensive in your acknowledgement, you'd go to the highest level of authority, which in this case is the Massachusetts tribe. And that was how we ended up with that particular acknowledgement, with that particular wording, which was given to us directly from the tribe itself. That was interesting to me because I would have, my natural impulse was to do it differently. So I'm glad that Everett made that connection in the beginning to say, are we really
So it's
using
more
the right
encompassing.
language?
Yeah, that
If
makes
that
sense.
makes sense. I just want to make sure that's clear because that's not common folklore. That's not the way it's typically presented in sort of a colonial influenced history. But the tribal history itself denotes that hierarchy through the sockenship of Nanapashmet, which he was in power at the time prior to colonization and just thereafter. So I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody because that was good history to learn.
So I think I'm kind of thinking more information for next steps. So members of the board, what can we task Everett or Anna or the HRC to kind of bring to us or supply us with a little more kind of background information? Would it help if we heard directly from one of the tribes to ask for the request? Or would you just like to know more about other kind of policies in other towns and see some examples? Our town council weighed in on it. He's got an opinion on it with some slight changing of the wordage if we do try to adopt something like Everett is proposing. And then also kind of I think there's kind of multiple facets here as far as, had Anna said it would be at maybe reading at the beginning of town meeting or other events, what would be the cadence of it if we adopt something like this when we would say the acknowledgement? Lots of layers here, I guess.
I think all of the above. I think we need to do some of our own research. I see the references at the bottom of the PowerPoint. I don't have that PowerPoint, so it might be good to have that deck so I could see the references at the bottom of it.
Yeah, so maybe we could, sorry to interrupt you, Bill, but Joe, Anna, if you could resend it or send it, or Everett, you could send it to Joe and he can distribute it to us, and then we can use those links there and follow those references and maybe even reach out to some of the folks that are directly involved. Bill, was there more?
And then maybe at a future meeting, once we've done some research, it might make, if we decide to go that step, it might, I think at some point we would invite, the author of the line. I mean, if it's that important, I think the author of the line should come speak to us about why it's important to him and his ancestors and his history and all that stuff. So I think that's an important part for me too, to hear from. I think once again, I think the awareness that has been brought forth to us shows the hard work of our youth, and I think that I've been thinking about that we've had, associate members are good members of our committees. I also think that maybe youth members of our committees are important too, because that's where the future is. So I think having the HRC having a youth involvement, I think is something we should learn from and maybe bring to other committees as well too. So
Everett, I've got a kind of a side question for you. With your group at school that you're involved with, I know we've kind of reinstated some civics classes at the high school. Is there any kind of interest in your group or other groups to kind of attend some meetings or get more involved in local government, at least see how it works? I did a internship with our state legislature when I was a senior in high school, and it was really kind of eye-opening on how government works. I don't know if there's any interest in that in the high school, but I think that would be really valuable for the community to get younger folks involved.
Well, I'll go back to my thing that I was going to say after I answer you. I'll have to ask around. I think there's definitely, it's a large enough school that I think there are definitely people who would be interested. There's always, every grade, there's, a few dedicated people who are really into that sort of thing. I was going to say that I don't want us to kind of assume that Thomas Green is going to come here and present to us. Like, I don't want us to oblige him to do that if that's not what he wants to do. If he volunteers to do that, that's great, but it's not really his responsibility to come in and educate other people. I don't want us to be kind of like extractive in that way, expecting them to walk us through it.
Anna?
Yeah, I'm glad Everett, you said that, because I think that's the other thing is you don't do a land acknowledgement for the tribe itself. You do it in honorific, in representation and in respect, but we're actually asking to do it for all of us, right? Because we're all part of this sort of connection to the land. And so it's not really about, like, we're not doing it for the Massachusetts tribe. We've sought their counsel to be respectful, but it's actually for the community itself. It's for all of us. So I think that that's sort of important. Something Everett just said is important too. It's, it's not their responsibility to educate us. But I do want to say, everyone will probably be thrilled to hear this. As a result of some of this initial genesis, the Human Rights Coalition is sponsoring a webinar on June 12th. And we have 3 speakers lined up that are going to address this and some other issues. One of them is Thomas Green from the Massachusetts tribe. One of them is a local historian, Mary Ellen LaPoinka, who has done some work on local history here in Cape Ann. And one is Dr. James Nez, who is both a medicine man and a lawyer from the Navajo Nation. And we've put them together to talk a little bit about some of the sort of broad brushstrokes of looking at Indigenous history, land acknowledgement being one of them, cultural appropriation, erasure, the difficulty of looking at colonial sources, which, one of the things that's difficult about this particular area, like I said, we're in this overlap period where there's a higher authority and a secondary authority and then a tertiary authority. But that history is really difficult to capture in a subculture where the history was largely written by colonial sources and the oral history of Indigenous populations wasn't necessarily ever written down. So it's difficult to look for these markers. So talking about cultural erasure. So on the 12th, they're going to be talking about sort of the challenges of looking at Indigenous history, looking at the current legislative Massachusetts agenda for the Massachusetts tribe, which is also interesting. And then because we have some access to some lawyers talking about sort of both state level and legal frameworks around how does state law and federal law, how has it affected Indigenous history? And also how is it affecting present day culture? So the coalition is working on some community education that everyone will be invited to. And Thomas will be part of that panel on June 12th.
Sean, I think we're kind of out of the.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was just waiting for Anna to finish and we'll come full circle here so we can wrap it up. Thanks, Anna, for that kind of plug. So I think we're going to task ourselves as a board to do a little more research on it. And then if we have questions, I'd encourage you to reach out to Everett or Anna about them, or vice versa, or both, or whatever mechanism you want. And then Anna and Everett, I or Joe will probably be in touch with you in the near future when we kind of reach some type of a not a consensus, but that we've done our homework, and then bring it back to us, and we can kind of discuss some type of a policy and what it says and when we read it and et cetera.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Everett, I just want to say thank you again for coming tonight. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, and our last.
Oh, well, Tosh Blake here, if I could speak to this issue or if there's any time. I
Sure,
know
Tosh,
Anna's
make it
on
quick.
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing some research on this too. Obviously interested in stuff that the town's going to declare is a kind of a statement. Just two things. Anna, talked a lot about different things. One thing I think is about the tribes itself, like the territory the tribes Hamilton land is on, or Essex County. She mentioned that Mary Ellen LaPionka. She's, I think, a local historian based in Gloucester, and she's written a lot of stuff, a lot of great resources on Ipswich. She has ipswichhistory.org and some other sites, local history, and she's studied, the tribes around here extensively. Seems like a good source, but it kind of contradicts what Anna said about who the tribes were. The Massachusetts, going to Mary Ellen, and other sources, other maps I've seen, actually did not have any territory here. It was actually, like Masconomet was actually not an Agawam. That's more of a place name. That's not an actual tribe name. He was a Pawtucket Indian of the Pennacook tribe, and they kind of extended from here north into New Hampshire. So the Massachusetts statement saying that if it was applied to Hamilton is actually incorrect. Their territory is south of here, kind of like south of Nahant and going in the Boston metro area. So Anna is trying to establish a sort of hierarchy, I think, based on the name of the state, but that doesn't actually have anything to do with the tribes that are here. So if you start putting up plaques around town, they're actually historically incorrect. That would be kind of a disservice to knowledge and to anyone wanting to learn about the history. I think, I'm not sure why she just reached out to the Massachusetts person. He may not be a disinterested party in saying, oh yeah, of course it was Massachusetts territory. But one of her, in the upcoming webinar, sources contradicts her sort of hierarchy of the tribes. So and also misrepresents, I think, Masconomet's tribal lineage. That's just more of a historical point of order. One other sort of objection, or just something going forward to look into if you're going to adopt some official proclamation, is as it was written, or as Everett presented it, it states in present tense that we are on indigenous land. That's actually sovereignty issue, and is not true. We are actually on United States territory. I brought this up with Anna at the HHRC meeting when it was read before, and she kind of cited UN stuff and stuff about Harvard University taking these things and saying, obviously they don't have jurisdiction over Hamilton, so they're kind of non sequiturs. But then she claimed, kind of contradicting herself, that was a poetic statement.
Hey, Josh.
But then another time says it's actually a serious thing. So I'm just saying, just going forward, be aware of that. Yep.
I'm gonna cut you off. We're getting a little bit off track there. You can have this debate if we get to that point with the policy or a plaque making. Yeah. You'll have future time and future microphone time. But tonight I think we're going to move it along.
Okay, great, sure. Yeah.
All right, thanks for your time.
Sean, we did have that we were going to update you on what's ahead. In the interest of time, we can leave that aside. We can leave that aside.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Although it is all stuff that you've all requested of us, but we'll leave it aside in the interest of time because it's getting very late.
Right, thank you.
Everett, could I just make a comment to Everett? Everett, thank you so much for your research and the time and effort that you've put into this. I certainly have, among many, have just the utmost respect for Indigenous Native Americans, and I'm very interested and very appreciative of all the work you've done. And Anna just mentioned you're going to have a webinar through the coalition, which is very interesting, and I will be sure to put it on my calendar. And I also would think about maybe you would want to do a lecture at the library. It's a very interesting subject, and it certainly does. It certainly is something that I think I could benefit from, and I'm going to guess a lot of people would enjoy that as well. So thank you again for all your time and effort, and Anna for coaching him and helping him along the way.
And then I saw that in the comment, Mark Everett, who's on the phone, I think, wanted to speak. Is that correct, Mark?
Sorry, it's Debbie. We've had
Debbie. I saw Mark
three
on the
devices
screen.
going tonight. I just wanted to mention that in terms of the conflicting resources that we've come across this question, and Anna has a really good description of how various databases concerning lineage and land disagree depending on whether you put in the town of Hamilton or South Hamilton or 01982, you will get a different answer as to what people groups were there. So I don't know if, in addition to the slides and the links that are in it, that maybe Anna could share that information so that while you're educating yourself, you don't have to go through the steps that others have been through saying these disagree. And actually, it's not correct at all to say that it's inaccurate as presented. The information sources differ, and there's sort of a summary to it, and there's the letter provided from the actual tribal group that explains our best understanding of the actual hierarchy. So I don't like that being called factually incorrect. There's different sources.
Gotcha. So I appreciate that, Anna. If you could also distribute that information as well.
Oh, Sean, if I may just answer the previous caller because she was addressing me.
No,
briefly.
sorry, Tosh.
I was just citing I was citing Anna's own source that contradicts her own plaque. So I don't know what that caller was talking about. Okay.
I don't think that's appropriate at all.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to kind of stop you both there. We're getting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I appreciate.
Thank
I appreciate your passion and opinions, but we're gonna move on.
Facts matter. Do facts do matter? Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah,
I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to move on to our last item on our agenda here tonight, and that is a town meeting wrap up and just a general discussion about it. Doesn't have to be really heavy lifting, but I think as far as town meetings go, it had a few hiccups and didn't have the kind of turnout that I was hoping for, but we got our business accomplished. And anybody want to chime in with any comments or?
I do. I want to make sure everybody goes to the polls on the 6th. And it would be great if the Human Rights Committee could somehow find a way. I've been waiting, because our ADA compliance is not legal and it affects everybody in town. So I'm hoping that they could focus a little bit on that. We have a few days left, and people need to understand that ADA compliance is part of your document. So I was looking for a little bit of participation. I know the coalition did speak up finally last week, which was wonderful, and I think it made a difference. So I'm looking for people who will make a difference.
And I would say on Darcy's point to our Human Rights Committee to reach out to the coalition and the Hamiltonites. I've seen a lot of Wenhamites commenting online about it, but it affects Hamilton. But as I kind of say, when we get kind of close to the time of election and issues that we need to vote on, if you call 5 people and ask each of them to call 5 people and so on and so forth, and express the real dire need for this town hall to be updated, with ADA and just basic employee health and rights. I mean, what are we saying to our employees if we don't update this building?
We don't even make sanitation code or plumbing code or electric code or safety codes, fire code, ADA compliance, EOE compliance. Those are all human rights and civil rights issues. So we really have to focus on what's in front of us. I know there's a lot of stuff around us that we can play with, but this is serious.
Yeah.
And it affects a lot of people.
We don't have an official platform upon which we can broadcast that kind of message. So we are acting behind, I'm sorry, excuse me?
Don't you have Facebook?
I have it as a personal citizen, yes. And I have been supporting I've been supporting the
I've seen Ann comment.
Project.
Oh, good. But I think people need to hear why, ADA compliance being a civil rights and human rights issue, this would be right up your alley. It could be
I'm a special ed teacher. Yes. Yeah.
Win for you guys. It could be. So.
All right. We're all on the same, we're all on the same page. All right.
Good.
Other town meeting comments. I think we had a little difficulty with the clickers, I think, because of the Wi-Fi situation.
Yeah.
Poor Pat had been working on it for like 2 weeks and it went smoothly every time, except for the time when we needed it in the beginning, but You got it ironed out.
But Joe, I think it was just a glitch that we realized what we did, right? It's not going to happen again, correct?
It shouldn't happen again. It was he got in there, he was testing it, and he was in test mode, and he didn't realize that he had to be logged in,
Oh.
so that the network would recognize him and allow it to to have access. So the Wi-Fi wasn't working properly. He figured that out, and then all of a sudden it worked perfectly. So I love that it worked well once we got them. Unfortunately, we had to get through the first couple votes without the clickers, but they were there for us the rest of the way. So
I would say the only kind of future suggestion I would have when things go back to whatever the new normal is, that I think for people that were way in the back, it was tough to see if your vote had been entered or not. I had talked about kind of toggling between screens or trying to fit them all on a screen. I think that was too much on a screen, and maybe toggling between screens with bigger numbers, or adding additional kind of TV screens somewhere, like, halfway through the crowd or on the side or something like that. Because we will probably next time be in the gym or the auditorium or wherever we end up in the future, and having a couple more screens where you can see. I think that was the only kind of thing. I think I replaced one clicker to a gentleman that it wasn't working, but I think all the other clickers worked just fine.
yeah, I think we tried to err on the side of doing both, trying to get as many up on a screen as possible, and also be able to toggle back and forth. So we had it set up to be able to show 150 per screen, but with only two screens, both at the front of the room. You're right. It was difficult at the back of the room to see. So we'll work on that. It might take a little refinement. Sorry.
Right. And then just porta potties that locked.
Oh no.
There was a few walk-ins, I think, over the course of town meeting that were unexpected on people. So any other comments? Rosie, did you have one?
I just had a comment.
Money back for that.
What's that, Jamie?
So we should be able to get our money back for the
right.
Don't lock.
Rosie, you're going to say something?
I was just going to thank Anna for her public support of the town hall renovation, directing it to the parents of the school. Anna, thank you very much. I will be optimistic that your endorsement helped, and I will appeal to you to continue up until Thursday at 8 p.m. Thank you very much.
If I could jump in, I have been as public as I can be. I wrote Seeds style missive on Facebook, and yes, the official coalition board did take a vote, and we did publicly encourage people to recognize and put the linkage together. So I'm being as noisy as I can be for people. So I appreciate that, and I'm cautiously optimistic as well.
Well, thank you, Anna.
All right. My video is acting a little goofy.
there it
there, I'm back. Any other comments about town meeting, or we can wrap it up?
May I make a motion?
You may.
I make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
All right. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All right. And if anybody has any new business, feel free to email me or give me a call. All those in favor of adjourning, we'll start with Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Okay, good. Jamie?
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill?
Bill's an aye.
And myself, Sean Farrell, aye. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight.